in single adult ministry, there's a lot of different types of people that come, aren't there? Some are really healthy and some are unhealthy. Let's talk about the different types of people that come.
Dennis, I'd like to start out with recognizing, yes, there are a lot of real healthy people who come. People who are interested in giving to others, people who are caring, people who are interested in just sharing with people. There's professionals, there's talented ones, there's successful ones. But I also know in all honesty, there's people who come who are needy. And there's a lot of areas of need.
Okay, needy people. Let's zero in on that because we know that people starting ministries are going to deal with all types of people. Who are the needy people? What types are coming?
Well, Dennis, if you'll stop just for a second and think about how does a person get to be a single adult, I mean, it'll kind of answer itself for you. You have a lot of folks there that maybe have been divorced, also widows or widowers. And anytime you have someone go through a situation like that, it's very painful. There's loss involved, especially those that have been divorced. They feel betrayed. A lot of times they're hurt very deeply. It introduces them into a whole new world of financial issues, loss and lack of trust for relationships going forward, introduces single parenting issues into their life. I mean, they just get blindsided with a whole wave of things now that they never wanted to deal with but are thrust upon them, and they're hurting, they're distraught, they're confused, and they appear at our door.
Wow.
And a lot of times, Kevin, that makes them very bitter. They're bitter to the establishment. They're bitter to the institutions, particularly to even marriage. Some of them are bitter to men, and men are bitter to women. You know, just as a group, just as a general group, they're just bitter, frustrated, angry. All those emotions are part of what you deal with, and your job is to bring them into a healthy relationships. First of all, just in a community, to make them ready before they can even possibly rethink about marriage, because they got to be healthy first.
That's right.
And some are financially challenged because some can be unemployed and some can be unemployed, and they come to the right place because we can help them with that. Link them to other places.
Another area of need that I see is socially. I'm struggling with even how to shake someone's hand real tightly, or socially not being able to hold conversations real well with others. We find those sitting in the back, just struggling on being able to communicate with others.
They're unskilled socially. They have difficulty in social situations. Yeah, single adult ministry attracts those too.
We have to remember also that when we open our doors in the single adult ministry, that many who come to our events and ministries have been rejected at other churches because they're single. And we may be the first welcoming setting or venue for them in a long, long time.
Yeah.
And then there's the physically challenged people that most of us, we don't know how to deal with them. How do you deal with somebody in a wheelchair or someone who has cerebral palsy? And they come and they are the least of these. And it's our responsibility to reach out to them as much as we reach out to the beautiful people.
Be educated on those challenges that we see.
I think the more educated we are and aware and prepared, the more innovative we can be to meet these needs. Especially those who are needy, we can turn them next into our leaders, future leaders serving the Lord.
When I was in San Jose, California, we had several prisons there. Do you find that people get out of prison and attend the ministry? We did. We had them.
I've experienced that. As a matter of fact, a man that I've known for 17 or 18 years showed up at our church. And after serving 16 years in state penitentiary, and it surprised me when he showed up at my office. And after we talked, I discovered a little bit about his journey and his acceptance of the Lord. He's now one of our teachers in ministry. And it's such a unique challenge, Dennis. You're right. You're right.
Yeah, I had an individual that spent time in penitentiary, and he came and he very, very excited about the Lord, having accepted Christ, and was on fire for God. But he still carried with him a lot of addictions that he picked up in the penitentiary that were underlying his spiritual growth and his ability to be a leader, particularly a male leader in the group. And so while it appeared on the outset that this was going to be a great add to our group, there's a whole lot of counseling, a whole lot of coaching
Yes.
that has to go on underneath that from the institution that he came.
Absolutely.
Many types of people will attract a ministry. Thank God they're coming,
Yes.
right?
Right.
The church is a place where we should be able to attract healthy and unhealthy people. But many different needs here, many types of people.
Well, and I can think of those in our group who are just brilliant in ministry and wonderful volunteers who have never been married. I think the trend today is that singles are getting married a little later and have expressed the need, Rich, will I ever get married? Will I ever have a husband, have a mate? And of course, I can't answer that question, but yet I see the neediness there, and we have to meet those needs too.
That's right.
Kind of brings up the whole issue of single adult ministry with diverse needs. So the diversity of needs and the diversity of types of people. Let's talk a little bit. How do we meet the diversity of needs? What are ways you've found? What are things you've done to meet diversity of needs with single adults, both healthy and unhealthy?
Well, we've started with some teaching as far as financial teaching. For all of us, we can all use guidance on how to be better managers of the money we have. And so that's a need that we can real practically provide guidance on for people.
Financial management, that's a big need.
Definitely. We do a lot of table leading where people get a chance to sit around and talk. And sometimes the biggest thing that a person needs is just a listening ear. And anyone can listen and take a genuine interest in listening to what someone else has to say.
That's right. Foundationally, Dennis, it really all boils down to people finding dignity and wholeness in their relationship with Christ. And what we find in the church is that's really hard to do by yourself. And what you really need is you need someone in your life that you can be real with, that you can let down your defenses and you can talk and you can share with, and you can have a person that you're accountable to, and maybe they're accountable back to you to help each other as you walk forward, as you grow, as you progress from faith to faith. Ecclesiastes 4:12 says it like this, that one can be overpowered, but the two can defend themselves, and a cord of three strands is not easily broken. And so singles ministry has an important role in helping singles develop those friendship, accountable, deep quality relationships that can really serve to minister to themselves and to minister to others.
It makes me think of something. Single adults, unlike married adults go home to a spouse. They can talk about their day. Single adults go home to an empty apartment, or a dog, or a cat, or a child, or maybe a roommate they don't even like.
That's right.
And so single adults even need healthy relationships more than married people in some ways.
It's absolutely vital, especially when you're coming out of a situation like being divorced, I mentioned earlier. You need somewhere to plug in a group like a divorce care group or a single parenting group, to where you can come into that smaller environment and begin to build relationship and to share about your life, is absolutely vital in helping you determine, are you going to make right choices and right decisions going forward in how you're dealing with the adversity that you're facing.
So you've mentioned the relationships help meet the needs. You've mentioned teaching. What are some other ways that we meet diversity
Well,
of
I think that healing comes from doing. If you can release single adults into some form of ministry that they are able to use their skill sets in, they're able to use their talents in. Maybe they hadn't had a great experience in leadership in a home or in child rearing, or perhaps many of them haven't had a good skill set in even dating, and that's why they're still single. But they have great skill sets, and if you can use those skill sets in some activity or event that encourages them, and you have to have entry level.
What are some entry level areas that you would put people
That's a great question, Dennis, because you can have greeters, you can have people setting up tables or setting up a sound system. You can have people that are musicians, that can play in non-worship settings if that's an important thing for you, or even in worship settings. Yeah, there's a lot of things that you can have. A lot of food, hospitality is a great one. A lot of retreats that need. Man, you can have men just have to hook up a trailer and drag the trailer to a retreat. Pack the trailer.
Get the
That's all they need to
loads.
do. Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, something I found that may even come before what Craig is speaking of. There are a lot of singles who are needy and going through difficult times. Some of them have trouble even believing that God even listens to them, even hears them. And so I think this idea of spiritual formation is very important for singles. Well, for example, we would do a 1 and 2 day retreat at a lake setting, where we would allow them just to spend some quiet time with the Lord, extended time with the Lord, and allow Him to talk through His Word, and for them to journal what God is saying. And then bring that back later and share with us. And, you know, it just speaks volumes. You know, God did hear me today. I believe He did speak to me today. That helps.
I also believe that we need to also be educated on different resources. A lot of our churches don't have all the ministries that can help this diverse people that come to our single adult ministry. But be educated, where can we refer them out and have them help them as well?
Such as counseling,
Counseling,
because there are many types of counseling in single adult ministry: relational, spiritual, emotional, psychological.
nonprofit organizations, anything that can help them in the need that they are presenting to us.
Yeah.
Now, that's particularly good for smaller churches that don't have the ability to cover all the needs in-house.
Right.
And smaller churches tap into the community. And we, as single adults, if you know what those resources are, then you can better direct singles to those and help build the kingdom at large.
And don't forget, resources are sometimes right under our nose.
That's
I know
right.
that in our group, you know, we have single attorneys,
Right.
nurses, healthcare
Social
workers,
workers.
social workers, educators.
Yeah.
We used to have a professional counselor.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Business owners.
Yeah.
Those who own their own counseling firms. And so it's right there in our circle if we are innovative to use it well.
One of you mentioned earlier, I think, as we were talking about the word accountability. How does that enter in? How do you help a single adult be accountable to someone? Is that something that can happen in your group?
Well, you know, Dennis, accountability is something that is basic to the Christian discipleship process. It isn't only exclusive for single adults.
Right.
And many times when a single is by nature free and unaccountable, that's the greatest temptations that enter his life.
Yeah.
And so by being regular at the attendance to events, he's accountable. Then you can have actually very proactive accountability where you go after them. You call them up and you find out how they're doing. You have put expectations on them. You know, it's important for men to sit with another man and ask him point blank, do you have a filter on your computer?
Yes.
How have you challenged others with that level of accountability in your singles ministry? Because that is as much a need in our culture today as anything, and they often don't have to do it unless somebody asks them.
And as we get acquainted, as we establish relationships, I as a man, I can learn to trust another man for him to have that ability to ask me that earn that right to answer and speak into my life. And I think that's important that we develop those relationships.
Absolutely.
You hit on something about teaching, I think, Darcy, earlier. Let's talk about that for a few minutes here as we continue. Teaching topics, teaching issues. What would you teach for people who are beginning ministries or they're newer into ministries? They're wondering what to teach. What do you teach in single adult? What do you recommend?
That is something we constantly talk about in our leadership team. What do we want to share that is of interest, brings people in? And we often talk about the felt needs. What are the felt needs of singles? What are the personal life issues people are facing? I think people love to hear about that. Some of the needs are communication skills, the differences between men and women, understanding the differences. That is of great interest for people.
Yeah. What other needs do you teach on? What
Well,
would you suggest?
I think we see in the life of Christ pretty much everything we need to be prepared to live life here on planet Earth as a single adult. And so to glean from his life, his sinless life, his care for others, the way that he himself nurtured and discipled those with whom he came in contact with. I think that's a good beginning. That's a good beginning. And of course, he's the ultimate single, is what I call him.
Right.
But that's a great place to start, the life of Christ.
You know, Rich, you just mentioned something there I want to touch on about how Christ served others. And one of the things I found in teaching is it's important to teach our single adults about serving and getting involved in ministry and pouring out of their life and getting their focus off of themselves. A lot of times singles come in with tunnel vision, and it's we can't necessarily blame them. It's a result of some of the very difficult things that they've faced and they've been through. But that focus is on them, and if we can help them shift their focus to others and get them involved. One of the things that we've done is we take our singles every few months to the local homeless shelter and give them an opportunity to serve. They absolutely love that, because they forget about the responsibility of being a single parent. They forget about their pain just for a few moments, and they see that they can make a difference. And that is so important in making that mind shift that they need to make, as Craig has talked about before.
I think many times that we as leaders think that what we have to teach is always about relationships and dating and marriage. And I'm telling you that the greatest attraction to men in our ministry has been when we taught on big ideas. Ideas about worldviews, perhaps things that reorient us towards our spiritual walk. For example, why did God let this happen? Why did God allow me to be divorced? Why did God allow this accident? Why did God allow me to be born as I am? Because these talk about His sovereignty. These talk about how to persevere as a Christian in your walk. Perhaps even issues like are talking about heaven, talking about your spiritual journey. These are big issues, big views, and it's not just about dating and marriage or pre-marriage kinds of things. And those kinds of things attract men. They attract men to the ministry.
I know a lot of single adults that would want to come and hear some of that. We'll send them over to you.
Yeah, send them our way.
And some are not even interested in dating or getting married, so that can just get them out of the topic that they're in.
I want to point out, and that's good. I think we should, personally, I think I would do both. Try and teach life issues, like you said, the friendships, the money management, the parenting, etc., the singleness. But because I can go to any adult class in any of your churches and I can get the spiritual issues taught, some of what you're saying, but I cannot go to any class and get the life issues taught. So I think we need both. I really do.
It's a balance.
It's a balance.
And in single adult ministry, you have a huge number of teachers that go untapped, because everyone who is there has a host of life experiences. They not only end up teaching each other, they end up coaching each other on life. And the more experienced ones, the more mature ones in Christ, they share from where they're at, and it's not just your burden.
That is so true, Jason. I just want to second that, because we just recently got to a place to where there are 3 or 4 different single adults in our ministry that have been through some things, and they're excited to share, and they've been coming to me and saying, hey, I'm not a speaker, but the Lord has kind of put this on my heart. Can I have an opportunity to share? And it's not a testimony. It's, it weaves in their life, but it's a message. It's a passage out of the Word that would challenge other singles. I've got one singles right now that's going to speak in just a couple of weeks, a message on Jonah, about how Jonah whined, and God wanted to use him and do these incredible things, and all he could do was whine about it. And just be selfish about it. And this wasn't something that I said, but she saw herself in that.
Yeah.
She identified with her singleness in that and said, I've got something to say to my friends in the group to challenge them to get beyond that selfish mentality. That's powerful.
Yes.
I agree.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, to what Kevin is saying, probably in the last 5 years, I probably now teach formally maybe 20% of the time. We've gotten to a place where we have such a wonderful teaching team, and the diversity of men and women, that I get to step back basically and just learn, soak in, be that life coach, and I've enjoyed that, all from single adults.
And ministry. It didn't start that way. At first,
No,
you were
not
not
at all.
teaching. Many groups are
It's
just
a
starting.
years.
They're the only teacher, but you're saying bring in others, bring in videos, bring in special guests, and hit both spiritual issues in their life and some personal life issues too and topics.
Absolutely.
Teaching is a big part.
Particularly for older singles, they have life experiences that they want to talk about. I have 2 single adult men that started out in our group. They just started out sharing. Now they're both in seminary, headed towards some kind of a ministry. They got that motivation because they were encouraged to share, to teach in single adult ministry.
And I have found that single adults can give a little 3, 4, 5 minute life share, we used to call it, and they're really teaching, but they're sharing about their life, of what God's done in their life and how God has helped them to grow and mature. Well, this has been great. These are good, helpful tips. Thanks for all your ideas in sharing about the needy people and about how we meet diverse needs, and teaching topics has been great. Appreciate that. Thanks much.
They make up nearly half of those in your church. 1 of every 2 adults who walk through your church doors are single or single again. Some have never been married, while others are divorced, widowed, or a single parent. 97 million adults, 44% of all adults in the country, are single by chance, change, choice, or someone else's choice. They visit your church, fill your seats, and give in the offering. But do single adults feel included in your church? Because many churches are mainly marriage and family focused, we need to be intentional about connecting single adults to the local church body. Some single adults come needing direction, encouragement, and hope. You can help them mature and become whole by meeting their practical, personal, and spiritual needs. You see, marriage doesn't make a person whole or mature. The Lord does. But others come ready to serve. Their boundless talents and abilities can strengthen and help your church. They have freedom and flexibility to give financially, go on a missions trip, or give their time. They're valuable and available. Jesus, the greatest single adult who ever lived, showed the impact a single adult can make in his world. He gave of himself for the church. Single adults want to do the same. Allow them to serve in every area of your church. Let's reach single adults and help them become all God wants them to be. Opportunity is there. What will you do? For more information on reaching single adults, visit singles.ag.org.